Welcome to the Nonprofit Podcast. My name is David Higgins, and I am so excited that we get a chance to talk today, actually about a very important conversation. We're talking about our reputation. We're talking about how do we look to our nonprofit donors that are looking to us, businesses in the area, large providers of money, even the small ones are saying, who are you as an organization? And we get to talk to a person who's not only being very involved in the nonprofit world, but she has also raised up a company that is there to help defend your reputation and help you build a reputation that is able to engage your donors with a real sense of who you are and your trustworthiness. I can't wait to get into this conversation. But before we get there, let's talk about the book, Demystifying Fundraising Funnels. This particular book is a digital marketing blueprint to fund your nonprofit. Maybe you've asked yourself, David, we do have social media, we have a website. What else do we really need as a nonprofit to really be able to engage the community, and especially in the area of fundraising for our nonprofit? Well, what the online tools are is they are a magnifier of what you're already doing for your nonprofit. If you're doing simple things like bake sales and car washes, or very complicated ones such as a auction or a dinner, you can take those online and magnify the results, sometimes 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 times the results coming back. Now, how you do it, the tools that we're talking about, that is what this book is talking about. It's talking about what is working right now in marketing and working extremely well for the nonprofits that involve themselves in it. So get the book wherever books are sold, whether it's on Amazon, Audible, ebooks. You can pick up the book. And if you have any questions, email us, call us. I would love to talk to you about your journey in funnels within the nonprofit sector. Excellent. Well, today's subject is an important one. It's an exciting one because we get to push into technology and online representation of who we are as a nonprofit in a special way. We're talking about the company that has just emerged over this last year called WikiCharities. It has created an online community for the nonprofit sector where they help improve transparency and connections between nonprofit funders, founders, and nonprofit resource providers. WikiCharity provides a nonprofit validation to reduce the burden of foundations as they support the many great causes in their communities and around the world. Today's conversation is with WikiCharities CEO and founder, Dr. Angie Holzer. Angie, it is so good to have you as a part of our podcast today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I'm excited to be here.
I am so excited to talk to you. What you're doing is fascinating. And as I did a bit of a deep dive into what WikiCharities is and what it's doing, it brought up a lot of questions.
Sure. I'm excited to answer some of those today.
So before we get into there, I want to backtrack a little bit. Back in 1998, your journey with nonprofit world, from what I could find, started with an organization which I love, the Boys and Girls Club. Is that right?
That is correct. Yeah, I was the director of the Boys and Girls Club in Salt Lake for
Wow.
several years. Yep.
Now, it's going from Boys and Girls Club to now starting your own really support system for nonprofits nationwide is a huge journey. Can you talk to us about the growth you went through to get to that point with WikiCharities?
Sure, absolutely. So from the Boys and Girls Club, I started my own nonprofit called Given Tree about 10 years ago. And from there, we supported small nonprofits around the globe for about 8 to 9 years, where we developed certification or this validation that we're now using for WikiCharities. And so I finished my doctorate last year, where I looked at the challenges that nonprofits face on a global scale. And WikiCharities really just answers a lot of those challenges and provides solutions. And so we launched it a little over a year ago. And really the goal is to provide this global database for nonprofits where those that need help can find the resources faster. Those nonprofits can find other nonprofits to work together. So we're really starting to create this global database and then a place where validation can be obtained, where funders can trust where their funds are going.
That is so needed in today's day and age.
Yep.
That point of being able to to build confidence
Mm.
with a nonprofit that you want to donate to or you want to support. You might like their message, but who are they really? To be
Right.
able to find a way to communicate that confidence is so important.
Right.
Um, you before you dive into one of your heartbeats when it comes to and that's being battling human trafficking.
Mm.
I just want to ask a side note question.
Sure.
Um, when I was on YouTube doing a little research, and I found that you are a core yoga class instructor on YouTube, and you're doing yoga. What I saw a number of videos you doing teaching yoga in Costa Rica, which
Right.
sounds heavenly to me. I mean, that to me sounds like the perfect gig right there, to be honest with you. But not only that, in 2019, you worked at Stanford University teaching yoga and meditation. What was that like? That seems very different than everything else you have going on around you.
Right. Well, yoga is all about balancing your life. And so, when I was studying and researching human trafficking, I was really grateful to have this other aspect of yoga to be able to really balance that out. And really, my hope in the future is, because I researched human trafficking, a lot of victims and survivors of human trafficking deal with PTSD and other issues. And yoga and meditation are a great solution to help work through those. So I worked at Stanford for about the last 4 or 5 years. As I got my doctorate degree, I took the summers off and I did work in Costa Rica, simultaneously doing my research and teaching yoga, which is also part of my love. And then I go back there every summer.
I want to congratulate you on the process of getting your doctorate. That is
Thank you.
quite a bit of work. Yeah, you got the 2021 Dissertation of the Year award, which is incredible. And you did it on where your heartbeat is, which is human trafficking
Mm.
and the nonprofit collaboration within that. Battling human trafficking has really been a focus of my family for 30 years.
Mm.
And I look back, that was given to me through my parents. My father got very involved as soon as the wall came down over in Germany between East and West. He was involved in helping support a number of nonprofits that was rescuing children being taken out of Ukraine because of human trafficking. Blonde hair, blue eyed children were, well, I don't want to get into it, just a very sad story.
Right.
And they were creating homes and rescuing these children back into that environment. And I, it's horrific to me
Mm.
that here in 2022 seems like the problem is greater than ever.
Right.
Um, can you take a moment and unpack for us what your journey in this battle has been like?
Sure. Because I've been working in the nonprofit sector, and when you go into a doctorate program, you need to find out, what areas can you research that you can actually contribute to. And so, as I did my research in human trafficking, I discovered that there are three main reasons why victims don't get help. The first reason is because they have a trauma bond with their trafficker or they're afraid of their trafficker. The second reason is they don't trust the authorities. And the third reason why they don't get help is they do not know what resources are in their community to help them. And so that was one of the reasons why I felt very strongly of creating this global database that individuals, victims, survivors, anyone that needs help can go on and find resources faster by location and topic in their community. And so, really, as I did my research, I discovered more and more that human trafficking really was, it wasn't well researched. Understandably so, it's harder to research than other areas. And so that was really what led me into this topic.
Wow, really good job fighting human trafficking in your research. You say, David, these ones, they're doing a great job.
Yeah, well, I have quite a few that I've looked into and researched. And I do have to say, there's so many different areas that are involved with human trafficking. Research shows that, really the vulnerable populations like homelessness and foster care and really any vulnerable population is where the traffickers really pull these victims from.
Mhm.
And so, it could be in prevention or aftercare services, but just a few, I've lived in the Bay Area for many years that There's an organization called Bay Area Anti-Trafficking Coalition, where they spend a lot of their efforts in the airports and training individuals. There's an organization in Oregon called Guardian Group, which really helps find the victims and help the survivors afterwards. We could probably talk about so many different homeless shelters and foster care systems that are adding an element of awareness to their programs. And we could go on, but those are probably a few of them that I've researched that I really like what they're doing.
Thank you so much for your focus being there. It's an uncomfortable focus because there's so much horror involved in it. Even as we're talking about, I'm thinking I need to practice one of your yoga sessions again. In fact, side note, one of your class or 20-minute class you did, I actually try to practice it here for those 20 minutes.
Oh,
and I have to, my flexibility is really poor. I'll be honest with you. I had somebody come past the office door and said, David, what are you doing? I said, I'm prepping for tomorrow. And they laughed at me. So
that's great. That's great.
So it sounds like I need a little more yoga. And so focus a little bit more on helping conquer the human trafficking dilemma we have right now.
Right.
Can I change the subject to WikiCharities?
Sure.
So it's an online community for the nonprofit sector, right? And it is being built around the concept of not just connection, but being able to build trust.
Right.
Can you talk to me a little bit about the dynamic of WikiCharities and as a small, medium nonprofit, how it could really affect who I am and how I present myself?
Sure, absolutely. So currently we do have 1.7 million US-based nonprofits uploaded on our platform. And as we slowly grow globally, that will continue to grow. But all of these 1.7 million nonprofits have access to their own webpage where they can claim their website. And then they have roughly about 60 to 70 different features on there that they can add information, making it easier to maintain this online platform. You know, in my research, I found that 30 to 40% of nonprofits don't have active websites. This is in the US, or their information is out of date. So in having conversations with the National Human Trafficking Hotline Director, she said that's one of the challenges that survivors and victims have is when they're Googling information about these nonprofits in their community, it's hard to find them because they don't have an active online presence or up-to-date information. So we provide a place, and everybody's familiar with Wikipedia at this point, though we hope to become a very well-known name that people will go there first to look up information. And we have a place where people can post all of their documents, or these nonprofits can post documents, their financials, their impact reports, all of their leadership, partnerships, right? We want everything transparent in one place, not just in the US, but we want to make it on a global place where nonprofits around the globe can do the same thing. And so once they're fully transparent with their profile page, they become validated, and then they have access to additional features.
Fantastic. One of the battles that we're facing here in the Northwest, where we're headquartered, is NPR News said that 38% of nonprofits in America are looking at closing their doors in the next 24 months. And the reason being is because such a focus being shifted from tactile fundraising, which is something they were raised in, over to online fundraising, being able to create a conversation and awareness online about your charity. And there's a fundamental breakdown there because they're great at their mission and they haven't been trained on online dynamics, and they've been so busy at their mission, they don't know how important online is.
Right.
And the small and mid-sized nonprofit that's just bringing in enough to accomplish what their purpose is. And for the most part, that 38% is the most, they're dealing with the most vulnerable parts of society. They are the food banks. They are the homeless shelters. They are, these ones that we can't live without it. We are going to be less without them. And I was speaking to a group of them in just a general consulting session. And I said, your websites, can you tell me what your websites look like? And most of them hadn't been on their website in a while and did not know what the update was. I said, let's look it up right now. So everybody looked at their websites on their phone. I said, okay, what does your website need to be able to say to communicate? And there was a sadness in the room. There was, because they couldn't communicate that. And then they turned around and I said, okay, let's see what your website wants to look like. We started looking at it and they started picking out websites they liked. We want to be like that one. I said, that is a $20,000 custom website. I said, can you do that? They said, no. So we ended up working with a group of digital experts, and they found we were able to build a $2,500 website that allows them to get on the Google Ad Grant, be able to have a really great upfront face image. And it's simple. It's not the $20,000 custom site, but it talks for the first time.
Right.
And the conversation has to be had over and over again by anyone who's willing to speak it.
Right. And I do think that that's one of the reasons why we provided web pages for nonprofits, especially when we take this international. Most nonprofits don't understand or can't even afford the $2,500 website, right?
Yeah.
So we are providing a very unique URL where they have their, it'll say WikiCharities.org nonprofit, and then they can actually put their name or leave it as their EIN number. And they can use that link as their website if they do not want to build their own website.
That is phenomenal.
Yeah. And, in talking to organizations in Costa Rica, that was one of their challenges, is they did not even have an online presence for people to donate. So we actually give people, when they subscribe to the annual validation, we give them a specific donation link that goes straight to their bank account. They can input a PayPal link or a credit card link that we do not touch, that we give them resources that it's harder for them to access otherwise.
Well, when this conversation is over, I would really like to get a little bit more information on that, because that is something I'd love to shout out loud and clear to anyone that'll listen.
Right.
It would be a big help to, we have a personal goal is to help turn around 2,000 nonprofits this year. That's one of the reasons we're doing this podcast.
Right.
And that would certainly be a resource that's available. Are you, I know you say Costa Rica, but that is so much still a part of the United States. Are you beyond our borders? Are you got plans of getting beyond our borders?
Definitely plans. I do have to say, out of the 1.7 million US-based nonprofits, several thousand of these nonprofits are headquartered out of the US. And so you go to Germany, for example, which my dad's German, and so I actually have a German passport, which I eventually want to station myself over in Europe. But you do find US-based nonprofits around the world. So in that sense, we're already global. But the hope is we do want to start expanding and adding organizations, nonprofits from Canada, Europe, right, Australia, and start expanding on the global scale. What makes it easy for us to start in the US is the IRS has an easy to access database where we can pull from. So the challenge that we face is really finding those databases in different countries to then easily upload it without having these nonprofits to manually do it one by one. So that's definitely our challenge, but our goal is within a year or two to be actively involved in the global space.
If you could boil WikiCharities down to one thing that it does great for nonprofits, the thing, what would that be?
Honestly, we call this a two-sided platform for the nonprofits and for the funders and foundations. But I would say the one thing for the nonprofits, it brings easy transparency to what they're doing. And then if I'm adding another element, we are providing different ways to fundraise. We have, just to talk a little bit about that, I talked about this donation link, but we also recently launched a referral program, which just means that once a nonprofit is fully validated and they refer another nonprofit, they can access $10 per referral. And after a while, that will add up for sure. And then we are, in the next few months, we are launching a project page where they can post collaborative projects to get funding. So as far as the nonprofits, that is probably the benefit for them. As far as the resource providers or the foundations and funders, we're making it really easy for them to vet a nonprofit on a global scale before they give.
That's fantastic. I can't wait for you to get beyond the borders. We have 25 years of going in and out of India, working with schools, orphanages, educational facilities over there. My goodness, it's a mess, but they don't have a database either.
Right.
How to bring something like this into that environment would be a huge breakthrough for them. It
Right.
really would be. You know, if I was on a board and I heard about WikiCharities and you got a chance to present to our board about the value and the necessary need that nonprofits are having with what WikiCharity provides, how would you address us?
Sure. Well, first of all, I would probably ask questions about how do you currently assess or vet a nonprofit that you decide to give to better understand what's priority for you. And then second, it's we would walk you through all of the elements that we do require on our validation. We are very, I mean, we've only been around for a year, so we're in a perfect place where foundations and boards that get involved right now can actually have a say if they feel strongly about adding something to our validation. That's why we're right now looking for partners in that space to be able to add their voice to that. So we're in a good position to do that. And I would say that is the value that we do bring. I also have to say that in my doctoral research, research shows that when we improve collaboration with nonprofits, we improve outcomes. And so, one of the main reasons WikiCharities exists, or I want it to exist, is when nonprofits are working together, is to improve this collaboration. So, on our platform, we only allow collaborative projects to be funded or to be posted. And we're really hoping that board of directors and foundations will go through WikiCharities as they fund projects from different nonprofits.
Very good. Very good. Do you mind if I break down the WikiCharities package a
Absolutely.
little bit? Because as I went through it, I was left with some questions.
Sure.
And I'm thinking to myself, if I am, there'll be those looking on the outside and saying, so what does this exactly do? So
Yes.
now, for the most part, I see that you got your free option, right?
Mhm. Right.
And you have a subscription option. So since everything on the free option is in the subscription option, let me just go through those 5 items real quick. Okay.
Yes.
So searchable on WikiCharities map by location and topic. But this is simple enough. I
Right.
went and I practiced on it a little bit.
Okay.
As soon as you go to your homepage, boom, it's there, right? Receive a WikiCharities profile page with personalized URL.
Right.
And that's what you were talking about earlier about website front end.
Right.
What platform do you do that on? Is it an internal one?
Right. It's an internal wikicharities.org platform.
Okay, very good. Does it use WordPress as its base
We
or?
don't. We've developed it from the very base up in our own kind of space, so it's easier to grow on a global scale.
Okay, very good. Is it searchable? Like Google search would find it.
We do. We're on the first page. We actually oftentimes pop up higher than Wikipedia right now, so this is great.
Wow, fantastic. Share your 501c3 on your profile.
Mm.
Can you kind of draw that out for me? There'll be those that are saying, well, do we want to put that out front? And others are saying, oh, I see the need. So can you talk me through that?
So sure, absolutely. And we have been asked several questions about elements on our profile page that some people don't want that external. And so oftentimes we make it an option to just be an internal information. But for the 501c3, this is usually one of the main requirements that companies or foundations require before they give. Is a nonprofit registered as in the U.S.? So that is public. It's a public document. And so we want to make it easier for these nonprofits to find it. They simply have to send somebody their personal URL, and people can pull from that. I have not heard anybody that's concerned about being that, having that publicized on a public place. But if there is ever a concern, people can address that, and we can make that an internal document.
Very good. Share contact information on your profile. Basically, if you know who you are, how to contact you, so it's out there.
Right. And you'd think that's easy enough, but that is one of the hardest elements of a nonprofit, is to actually get their updated contact information for people to outreach to them.
Very good. Share website and social media links on your profile. And that seems pretty basic. You have links.
Yep.
From their profile to them. Okay. So the WikiCharity subscription price point is $99.
Right.
that investment does what does it represent, and how does it impact my nonprofit? Is the first thing I would ask, sitting on a board that wants to invest and use WikiCharities as a communication device for them.
Sure.
So here are four major points that you add to the. The first one is uh, sharing financial records like the 990s, leadership, board member, partnership, funders, etc., on your profile. At what point, and we have two frames of mind, and sometimes it seems political.
Mhm.
Okay, so from political perspective, you have those that are more, we're here to serve the community, and it's all out there. Then you have those that are on a more conservative, restrictive, like we only share the information we need to,
Right.
because we become more vulnerable.
Right.
It's a vulnerability issue. And when we're talking about 990s and these type of things, we're putting it really out there, aren't we?
Right.
We become incredibly vulnerable as an organization.
Right. And I would also say nonprofits in and of themselves are required when somebody asks them for information, financials, they're required to make that public, right? And so we're making it easier for them to send that. But that being said, there are human right organizations, for example, that may be less likely or willing to post things on a public. And so we do make some of these features and internal, as I was mentioning, that they
Hmm.
do not have to post this public, that could be board members not wanting to be as public. Um, However, they are
Yeah.
listed on their 990s. So if someone knows where to search, it's easier to find. So we are open to kind of adjusting that right now, even in these early stages. But right now,
Hmm.
everything is public as far as
Yeah.
a nonprofit goes into it.
I do know that, for example, the 990 that you bring up is a great, I I'd say, a point of concern boards would have, because if somebody wants it, yes, they need to go know how to find it.
Mhm.
But it's the difference between say, okay, for the person who really wants to find out, they can go find it, versus the transparency of saying to anyone, click one button and boom, you have access to seeing what our 990s were last year. Now, the truth is, to do that would bring a whole lot of confidence to the donor or the business that wants to network with you, right?
Right. And I would say one of the challenges in the nonprofit sector on a global scale is fraud. They've guesstimated $40 billion of fraud every year in the nonprofit sector. And one of the main reasons is this management oversight, right? That no one is following up on the financial. It's not as public. People, so we are trying to kind of reduce that challenge and bring a solution to
Mhm.
that.
Providing for you information so that those who want to trust us, we have a much higher upside.
Right. It's interesting is we will, once a nonprofit is validated, we're adding features of endorsement. So if you're familiar with LinkedIn, how you endorse other individuals, we have about a dozen different elements where somebody that goes in and says, yes, I have seen their headquarters in person. Yes, I've met their CEO, right? So I've worked in Africa for many years, and that was one of the questions people had, right? Was how do I trust a nonprofit in Nigeria, right? And so we've come
Great.
up. Right. So we've come up with these endorsements where a validated nonprofit that has gone through these steps that are fully transparent can now go in as a fellow nonprofit and endorse other nonprofits they've worked with, they've seen, right? And so the idea is, and we also ask partnerships, like who do you partner with? And so the question is, or the idea is, year after year, when a nonprofit in Nigeria has no partnerships, has no endorsements, right? We can start pulling these red flags when these elements aren't there. So we're trying to add features that when I know transparency really is the key for us. But once they're transparent, we want to add an element of activity and validation, not just with validated nonprofits, but eventually individuals that have seen these nonprofits operate and volunteered with them.
That's brilliant.
Yeah.
That really, I can see the high value in that.
Yeah.
That would be fantastic. Do you have any other, like an app or anything like that in the works, so somebody could just go on an app and do that without having to navigate through your map?
Well, that's a great question. We haven't started down that road, but I could see us doing that in a year or so once this is more nonprofits are using our platform.
Fantastic. Now, you receive donation funds directly somebody can receive donation funds directly to their bank account through you. Are you using a platform like Stripe, or is that done just internally as a pass through?
No, I felt strongly that I didn't want to touch any of those funds when somebody was bringing in a donation that they found, right?
Hmm.
So we simply just provide a link where they can input, PayPal provides a direct link. And so they create a PayPal account, for example, which means if you're familiar with PayPal, those
Very
listening,
much so, yeah.
really, so they can donate through PayPal, or they have the option of donating it through a credit card. And so
Hmm.
it doesn't see our bank account. They simply use that link. It goes straight to the PayPal or the credit card. They donate. They see it. So we don't touch it. We don't monitor any of that. We just want to provide an easy donation link for them.
Hmm. An all-in-one platform, really.
Yes. Yeah.
Fantastic. You recommend using your templates for financial statements, impact reports, board member requirements, volunteer waiver forms, and more. So you do have quite a bit more than just what we're dealing with on the surface. There's a
Absolutely.
lot of depth as far as supply.
So the idea is, out of these 60 questions, give or take, that's on the profile page, we do provide templates for financial statements or impact reports that nonprofits can use. I mean, most of these nonprofits, they say 80 to 90% of nonprofits are small, right?
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
the majority of these nonprofits never create a financial statement or have never asked for one, right? And so we're
Hmm.
trying to make it as easy as possible so they can simply use our template, input the information, upload to their profile page um, for them to use.
Very good. As we look at 2022, what are the biggest battlegrounds do you feel that are ahead for nonprofits?
Well, I think you mentioned it right up front. It's funding, especially with the pandemic. In as I was doing research during the pandemic, it was interesting that oftentimes when I would reach out for a nonprofit to take a survey, when I was doing my dissertation, they didn't exist anymore, right? They didn't
Hmm.
survive the first year of the pandemic, and so that is because of funding, right? And so I think that's one of the biggest challenges is just being able to maintain what their mission through the funding that they're obtaining. Volunteers is another concern. They say 70 to 80% of nonprofits in the U.S. operate off of volunteers, and if we're seeing, because of COVID, individuals not willing or wanting to go, help support in person that not a lot of these nonprofits need, that's going to be a huge challenge as well.
Absolutely. I I was doing some research in North Carolina for a group of nonprofits, and in doing so, the Secretary of State's office puts out the top 10 most trustworthy nonprofits, and they have a criteria, and of their local nonprofits. It's a great way for interstate nonprofits to be able to really say, look, we've been validated by the Secretary of State.
Right.
And as I looked at ones from 2019, that the top 10 in 2019, they're missing for 2020, and then as they came into 2021, they were no longer viable. Like they're closed.
Right.
And as I started looking at this top 10 list and ones that were missing, I was finding out that the reason why was they were not even represented properly in 2019 online. And it's that online representation that is becoming the Achilles heels for a lot of these small nonprofits.
And we're hoping to solve that because we want to be this hub like Wikipedia where people go to us first to kind of check out who's around in our community, and so they can provide the platform, or we'll provide that platform for them.
Yep. All right. So I'm throwing this out there. I got to see a lot of your presentation and a lot of your background in the research for this conversation. And I got a feeling you got a TED Talk in the future. There's a lot going on around you, a high level of information connection, and they always like somebody that has a doctor in front of their name. And so, in your first TED Talk, and you have dozens or hundreds or even thousands of nonprofit leaders in front of you, what would you say to encourage them?
Really, it's if you feel passionate about something that you are doing, there are ways and resources out there for you to help you. I think it's just finding the best direction and really being willing to pivot when you need to pivot, right? So as you were saying, before the pandemic, people were fundraising in person. galas, events.
Hmm.
They need to be able to pivot and kind of think of new and innovative ways, which is one of the reasons we recently launched a new journal called the Journal of Nonprofit Innovation. The second edition will be coming out this week, where we are hoping to address some of these innovative ways that the challenges that these nonprofits face that they need to overcome.
Where could somebody find this? This is going to be on your home website?
It's on the website there where there's a specific page on WikiCharities. You can Google it. There's also a LinkedIn platform where we post all of the journals. It's free. We want to make it free on, purposeful. And we really encourage nonprofits that are doing innovative things to send spotlights. We want to spotlight them. We want nonprofits that are thinking kind of out of the box in some of these areas to be addressing what they're doing.
What's the best way for a nonprofit leader to connect with WikiCharities?
Email is a great way, info@wikicharities.org. Anyone can absolutely email me directly at Angie@wikicharities.org. That's probably the best way to interface with us. We'll answer pretty quickly.
I have to say, I got to spend quite a bit of time on your website, and it's easy to navigate, and I can get lost looking at all the nonprofits, all the teardrops, all the way through there as I was going through there. In fact, we end each show giving a shout out to a nonprofit that we think is doing a great job. We really like the ones that are really focused in on their communities, and they're really fighting hard for their communities. And so I don't know if you got a chance to think of one, but I'll go first. And let's give a shout out to somebody who we believe is doing a great job. Sound all right?
Yeah.
So I used your map on WikiCharities.
Mm-hmm.
And in WikiCharities, I found, sure enough, the place where as a teenager, I spent a few years in, called Ridgecrest, California. It's northeast of Los Angeles. And my dad was shifted there for a season to really help with some nonprofits that were in the region. And in those times in Ridgecrest, in the middle of nowhere, I found that you had listed several dozen 501c3s. Mm. And so I started going through and going, oh, I know that one. I know that one too. And one of them was the Ridgecrest Toastmasters Association. And the Toastmasters Association is a national association, but they have charities in all places in Ridgecrest. Like that's out in the middle of nowhereville. Right. And wonderful people that live there, I have to say. It doesn't mean that the dusty town is a place I would choose to move to again. But, Toastmasters is there. And Toastmaster is an amazing organization that really helps you improve communication and public delivery skills. And you're going to find a chapter of the Toastmasters near you, wherever you are in the country, because they are phenomenal in the way they engage their communities and also support their communities beyond just their own mission. And so you'll be thankful that you'll reach out to Toastmasters near you. And I want to give a shout out to the Toastmasters in Ridgecrest, California, because they are doing a great job of taking care of their communication, their community, and communicating to their community. And you can find out more at toastmasters.org. So that was my shout out. It's your turn.
Sure. And I mentioned that I've spent many years in Africa. And so I do know quite a few nonprofits that have worked over there. But one that really comes to my mind is called Care for Life. They're based in Mozambique, really in Beira. And they do a great job in really involving the community in the issues. They help locals So they actually help locals grow fields and crops. They help them understand safety. So they really involve a wide variety of elements in the community to help them be sustainable. And so that's one of many. I Reach the Children is another one. They're based in Kenya and Uganda. I could go on, but there's some great organizations doing some great things.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing them with us. Angie, can you give us their name one more time?
Care for Life.
Care for Life.
They're based in Mozambique.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
I never got a chance to go to Mozambique. Spent some time in Zambia and South Africa and Kenya, especially Zambia. But Mozambique, that'll be an interesting place to visit one day.
It is. There's some amazing people there for sure.
Well, Angie, thank you so much for being a part of our podcast. And I really appreciate you coming in for this conversation.
Well, thank you for having me.
Wonderful. For those of you that are listening and watching on YouTube, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. There is a lot to learn about WikiCharities. Go on their website, check it out, see out who they are. And if they are a fit for you, they'll be a good fit for you. And I am really glad to have Angie come and speak with us about this wonderful resource for you and your nonprofit. We appreciate you. We need you as nonprofit leaders and as volunteers. Thank you so much for what you do for your community. And thank you for listening to this conversation. You have a great week. Until we speak again this coming week, have a good day.